For the longest time, I honestly thought that I was born without self-love, without self-confidence. I was just like, I never had it. It was something that I've always struggled with. And I've sat through so many conversations with my parents, with teachers, even with bosses at times, which gets kind of awkward,
Yeah.
where they're like, um, your problem is that you don't have any confidence. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, I know that's the problem. How do I fix it? And they're like,
I love that you're so excited. You're like, yes, I do have this. Yes.
like, yes, I've heard it before. I've heard it multiple times, lots of times. And my next question is always, how do I fix it? And they're like, I have no idea. I've never had that problem before.
They're like, this is where it stops for me.
Right. So it's like, okay, admitting that you have a problem is the first step, but then what's the next step? And that's been the biggest struggle for me. It's only really been in the last couple of years now that I've realized that it's not that some people are born without it. It's just that it's a challenge for some people. It doesn't come as naturally to some people like myself as it does to others.
I really don't think that it's something that like we're all born with. Like when we're little babies, we love ourselves, when we like I have a little friend who has a baby, and when he sees himself in the mirror, it's like he is amazed with himself. Like you can tell that like kid is like in love with himself. And I
Right.
think that's also like what we all experience. And then as we start to grow up, we start getting to hear feedback on like, you're being a bad child. And then as a little kid, we're interpreting that I'm bad, or I'm not worthy of this, and then we continue into our teenage years, which is probably the biggest place where we get hurt in how we feel. And then we start to learn what's acceptable in society and what's not, what opinions are accepted, what nationalities, like all those other factors that we get judged on and that we judge others on as well. The things that we see in media, I mean, that's like that deserves its own episode all on its own. And when all those things come into play, suddenly we're like, oh, so if we loved ourselves and we are here, now we're slowly going, -1, -1, another negative, somebody else said something negative. And when we're not putting any work in like something positive to bring our self-esteem back up, or how we feel about ourselves, or we're not spending time taking care of ourselves, giving ourselves the respect, or voicing our opinions, right? Which is another way of telling yourself that what you're saying is worthy. If we're not adding anything, we're then just constantly in a deficit. And it becomes hard work to do, because no one, until they bring it up to you and they're like, you're not being confident. You're like, well, like, where did I learn to do that? Like, I didn't take a class for this. Nobody takes a class for this. Was there supposed to be a time like when you're like, okay, for your 13th birthday, we're going to have a confidence class, or we're going to have a class on self-love.
Yep.
And right from that, we jump into, well, how do we love other people then, right? Like it's never this whole period. I mean, as soon as you're a teacher and like, okay, you start having crushes, maybe you have your first boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. It goes directly into other people. There isn't this part where it's like, well, I need to love myself first, because really, well, how do I know to do that with anyone else?
Yeah. And I think for INFJs, it's even harder because our feelings, we have extroverted feelings. So we're always worried about everybody else, and we don't spend a lot of time being worried about ourselves. And when you get to, when you don't find out that you're INFJ until you're older and you don't start understanding that things, like I've only known that for a couple of years and have really been studying it and really understanding what all of it means. So for me, I just thought it was normal and that everybody was so focused on everybody else.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wait a minute, here I'm, 32, 33, just figuring out that that's not how everybody feels. That's just just a few of us that are pretty rare who feel that way.
And it's also, if we were to have more of these conversations like with our friends or just anyone really, then we would start to notice that, oh wait, like not everyone else thinks about it this way. But because we all really stay focused in our own thoughts and our own beliefs, and keep conversations at a really surface level, then we really never truly get to know other people, and in turn like be able to help each other through this journey, and be able to to handle some of those like more complicated things where you're like, I can't really Google this answer because I keep just getting like really fluffy things, and none of the like emojis and the gifs are helping me in this situation.
Right. Or, when you do reach out to your friends and family and they're like, I have no idea, I don't have that problem. And they're like, and then it becomes more of an attack on you,
Yeah.
even if they don't mean it to be, because they're like, what's wrong with you that you don't have that? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, so it is just me? Like there's something wrong with me? I'm completely broken? I thought it was just a little bit, but now it's like totally.
Thank you so much for your help again.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so where do I even start looking? I mean, that's my biggest question, honestly, because a lot of people ask me that too, and I'm like, it's just been a process for me, and I'm really starting the process out. So where do you tell people, where do you start looking when they have that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's never really like a right or wrong time to start, because whatever it was that triggered, not trigger, maybe that's the wrong term, but that really clicked for you, that you're like, wait a second, like it's true. Everyone else tells me I don't seem confident, or they don't see me as someone who's confident, or I can tell that I don't really have a lot of love for myself, or I can be my own worst critic. I think that is one of the biggest flags, where we flat out say I'm myself's worst critic. Then that's really like a confirmation, I think, or a bland like explanation that there is no love there. Because if I'm my worst biggest critic, that means there's no way for the love to come through anywhere, because the critic is the only one that's going off. And
Right.
so I don't think there's ever any wrong time. I think whenever it happens is the right time for you, because we have to also be in the place to be able to accept that now is the time for me to look at them, or to look at this. Now I have a little bit more maturity. Now I see how it's affecting my life. Now I've chosen to live my life differently. A lot of times when I work with my clients, they come to me when a change has happened in their life. So they either have just gotten out of a relationship, or they're in a job they really hate, really in that word, or something has happened in their life where they're like, I really don't like the way that I'm looking at myself through this, or I really see that I'm the one that's getting in my own way. I'm the one that's not really letting myself propel forward. And when you're at that place, it really just, the first step I always say is just the awareness of it on its own. The awareness within you, because it doesn't matter how many times people have said that to you. When it's not the right time for you to handle it, it's not the right time. And so when you finally see that in yourself, the awareness of it is that first step, just like we said before, like when you know the problem, okay, so now it's the first step. And really it's more of the awareness. I don't think it's a problem in that sense. And the way that I like to work, and one of my main beliefs is none of us are broken. There isn't any fixing that needs to happen. We just need to take care of ourselves. It's all about, how can I make myself feel better? How can I make myself really live the life that I want to live and be the true version of me, versus like, what can I add on to like fit the pieces of the puzzle? Who can I attach into my life to love them so they make me feel whole, or what job? Because the moment we start to look externally at anything that's besides ourselves to fill up that place, it becomes, that's even more dangerous. Because what happens when that thing falls out of your life, when that partner leaves, or that job changes, or any part that we've identified as part of our identity about who we are and if we're worthy of love or not. And so when we only turn towards our inwards, not towards, inwards within ourselves, then we start to experience some of the things of, where did we learn that it wasn't okay to love myself? When did I learn that, I don't love myself when I look at myself in the mirror? Where did I learn that? Why am I saying that to myself? And a lot of times, when do we start adapting that inner dialogue that maybe a parent said to us, some little kid in third grade that was bullying us, and now that's the internal dialogue? Because what happens is, when we hear it, then we start absorbing it as our own. And there isn't then any time when that language is like, no, wait a second, without the awareness of, wait a second, that was something that, the bully in school said to me. It was never my own words, but somehow now I've carried it for years as my own words. And the next step after that awareness for me is just that curiosity. It's a curiosity of willing to meet yourself with some compassion, to just really look at things for how you how you're living in them, how you're living, how the words that you're saying to yourselves, how do you look at yourself, how do you interact with others, how do you act when someone talks about you, how does that make you feel, do you want to hide, do you not want anyone to know your opinion. We talked just a little bit about that people pleasing aspect of like really jumping in for other people. Is that because I don't think my opinion is worthy enough, so I'm trying to help someone else with their situation here?